No, Carl Edwards is not going to attempt the Daytona 500 next month. Jimmie Johnson did announce he will attempt to qualify for the Daytona 500. We have a Bowman Gray legend headed to the Clash. Plus, we'll talk a little Chili Bowl. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. We're going to start the show real quick with some condolences to the Truex family. Martin Truex Jr. and Ryan Truex lost their father, Martin Truex Sr., on Friday at the age of 66, which is entirely too young. And it hits really close to home because my dad is approaching 65 years old. And when you see other people starting to, not make it, it's one of those, moments where you recognize mortality, and it really sucks. Martin Truex Sr. was a stalwart of the Busch North Series, a one-time winner. He started 15 NASCAR, what now is known as Xfinity Series races, back then Busch Series races, and he helped get his sons to the top tier of stock car racing in America. Obviously, Martin Truex Jr. is a two-time Xfinity Series champion, NASCAR Cup Series champion, winner of a ton of races. Ryan Truex thankfully got to have that success in 2024 that his dad got to see, where he won 2 of his starts in the Xfinity Series for Joe Gibbs Racing and continues to try to, plow his own path into the sport here. But just brutal news, honestly. Like it sucks, especially the day after Martin announced that he's going to run the Daytona 500 using the number 56, which his dad raced in the Busch North Series as well. Obviously, Martin has used it in the Cup Series too when he was over at MWR. But just one of those things just sucks to see. Like there's just nothing that you can say that makes it better. But yeah, it's just unfortunate news. So condolences out to them. Just like I said, brutal, especially as we're heading into race season starting up. Transition from the sad news into things that we want to talk about that are a little bit more uplifting, I guess. Mike Kelly, the crew chief of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in that number 46 or 47 Hayek Motorsports car, kind of sent the internet into a bit of a tizzy on Thursday night when he tweeted that he, is expecting cousin Carl to make an announcement that he's going to run the Daytona 500 as well. Cousin Carl, in reference to Carl Edwards, referred to as cousin Carl when he was in the NASCAR Cup Series. No, Carl Edwards is not going to race the Daytona 500. Mike was just, I think, making a joke because we saw Jimmie Johnson and Martin Truex Jr. both announce that they would attempt the Daytona 500 in open cars. So just kind of retired guys coming back to, keep running in the sport's biggest race. Carl Edwards is not coming out of Missouri. He's not flying down to Daytona to run this race. There is no car that is being prepped for him at the moment. It's just not going to happen. Carl has not been in a NASCAR Cup Series race, a NASCAR race of any kind, since 2016 at Homestead, when his championship hopes were dashed after he and Joey Logano got together. Not saying Joey did anything wrong. I'm just saying they got together. He took a hard hit into, the outside wall there, got out, went down to the 22, said, hey, go win this thing. They didn't end up doing that. Jimmie Johnson went on to win his 7th championship, but then Carl announced his shock exit from the sport in January of 2017. I remember vividly being at Arapahoe Basin in Colorado, eating lunch and looking at my phone being like, holy shit, this is actually happening right now. Before I was making content, so didn't have to try to scramble and find a quiet place to record a video. Either way, it was one of those shocking moments, and we're not going to see Carl come back and get into a car. As much as people want to see it, at this point, he has been out of the car for 9 years almost. That is entirely too long. He's just going to be super rusty. He's not going to be at the top of his game, and that's totally fine. Why he left the sport, that is up for him to say. Maybe it is because he didn't like the hits that he was taking. Maybe it is because he didn't like the fact that he felt like the championship was robbed from him. I'm not really sure, but we've seen Carl Edwards start to reemerge into the sport over the last couple of years, doing some TV work, making some appearances at tracks, working with a number of different, drivers and organizations, and still doing his charitable things on the side. Listen, the guy made his money. He wants to be at home with his wife and kids and enjoy his time. He did mention that he watched a couple races last year. Southern 500, I believe, is what he mentioned. He and his son watched it together and were super hyped up about it, which is fun to see because, 2024 was a really great racing season. So yeah, as much as I think people want to see Carl come back, it's just not going to happen, which is totally fine. On the other side of things, Jimmie Johnson is coming back, which we expected. We were just waiting for that number 84 Toyota Camry to be officially confirmed on the entry list for the Daytona 500. Now it is. Jimmie Johnson will attempt to qualify for his 22nd Daytona 500, a race that he has won 2 times before, driving that 84 Toyota Camry, Carvana sponsorship, Ford Legacy Motor Club, of course, a team that he is a co-owner of. And I'll be honest, he's got some steep competition to get into this race. Obviously, we know Elio's locked in whether he races his way in or not. If he doesn't race his way in, that actually helps out a lot of people because then that means that there's 4 open spots versus the 3 if Elio does in fact race his way in. We'll see how all of that plays out. But for Jimmie, yeah, this is going to be one of his bigger battles to try to lock into this field, especially after Martin Truex Jr. announced that he is entering this race with Tricon, which is essentially just a Joe Gibbs racing car. Typically, they're not the fastest qualifiers, but those cars typically race really well. So he might be able to race his way into the duel. Jimmie's going to need some help, I think. He said that he's going to run 2 races in 2025, only has 2 on his schedule, that being Daytona 500 as well as the Coke 600, both of those races sponsored by Carvana. Bob Hawker tweeted out. Somebody in the replies immediately said, Bob, is he going to run any other races with Family Dollar or Dollar General or whatever the sponsorship is at Family Dollar Tree, not Dollar General, 2 different companies. Same CEOs at different times, different companies. No, he's not going to, but that's like peak NASCAR fan on Twitter at times where you're just like, what? Hey, Bob, does Daytona have lights? Yeah. Buddy, there's a night race here. What do you think? So, yeah, Jimmie Johnson coming back. I know people in the comments are going to be like, why doesn't he just retire? He's ruining his legacy. Honestly, I don't really care if he's ruining his legacy or not. I like to see competitive race cars out on the track. I like to see people in race cars. I'm not going to sit back on Jimmie Johnson's career and be like, yeah, he's a 7-time champion, but it really doesn't mean that much because he came back and ran 12 races for his own team. Personally, I don't care. Run as many races as you want. Who gives a crap? You've won 7 championships. It's not like I'm going to sit back and look at Tom Brady and be like, oh, you really shouldn't have done that extra year at Tampa Bay when you came back. Like, he was just off winning the championship. Like, he should come back and do stuff like that. So, yeah, totally fine with it. But, yeah, Jimmie Johnson will attempt to qualify for the Daytona 500. Speaking of attempting to qualify, the Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium is about 2 weeks from Sunday from happening. February 2nd at Bowman Gray Stadium, the Madhouse will host its first NASCAR Cup Series race since 1971. And one thing I'm really excited about it, the legends of Bowman Gray Stadium are getting an opportunity to race in this race. Not only are the modifieds running the night before, which is fantastic because if you haven't seen a modified show at Bowman Gray Stadium, you absolutely should. And you should really pay attention to this one because people are going to want to win it. But for the Clash, we have 2 Bowman Gray legends, 2 living legends, that will both be attempting to qualify for the feature event on Sunday night. Network Fox, 8 p.m. Doing a plug there for Fox. You're welcome for that. Free advertisement from me. But Burt Myers will attempt to qualify the number 50 car for Amerivet into the Clash. Obviously, on Saturday, there are going to be heat races. On Sunday, there's an LCQ, and then there is the feature race on Sunday night. But Burt Myers is an 11-time track champion at Bowman Gray Stadium. He has made starts, only 1 Truck Series start, but he has Wheeling modified starts. He's got Southern modified starts. He is, like I said, an 11-time track champion at Bowman Gray Stadium. He is a staple of the Madhouse show on History Channel. He is a guy that is constantly finding himself in conflicts at Bowman Gray Stadium, which is just the nature of the Madhouse at this point. But he'll be joining Tim Brown, who is another legend of Bowman Gray Stadium, over 100 wins, defending track champion, I believe, at the Madhouse. So 2 guys that are just duking it out week in and week out, that are filling that racetrack every single weekend, now get an opportunity to run NASCAR Cup Series cars in this race. And I absolutely love the idea of that. What I don't want to see happen is one of them take off across the football field and just T-bone the other one. Don't need that happening. But to see the 2 of them get out there and race would be really entertaining. Yeah, they're completely different cars than the modifieds, going to handle completely differently as well. But the fact that they're getting this opportunity is really cool. It's like when SRX would go in the first season to different racetracks and then have like the local hero, the local star hop into one of those cars, whether that be like Luke Fenhouse up in at Slinger, Doug Coby up in Stafford, like stuff like that. I love to see that. I love to see these short track guys get the opportunity because maybe they don't have the budget to make it all the way up, but they have the talent and now they can show it off to everybody. And same thing here. Are Tim Brown and Burt Myers ever going to make a jump to the NASCAR Cup Series full time? Absolutely not. They're too old at this point. But to see them get this opportunity to, get their flowers in a sense, as the kids like to say, absolutely love to see it. So hopefully they can find their way into the feature on Sunday night. That would be electric, but it's an uphill battle for the 2 of them. One of them is in a Rick Ware Open car. The other one is in the Amerivet car, which If you remember Connor Daly trying to qualify that at the Daytona 500, he was essentially riding a bucking bronco around like he was at a bar. Wasn't the best look ever. Did manage to make it into the race, so there is that. But yeah, that team used to be the money team. Now it's Team Amerivet. Hopefully it's got a little bit more going for it. The Uris are working on it. So I'm holding out a slim bit of hope there for Burt. And then we'll close off here real quick with the Chili Bowl. It has been an absolutely fantastic week of racing. 5 nights of qualifiers, Monday through Friday. Great racing every single night of the week. Kyle Larson stole one on Monday night, locked himself into the feature on Saturday night. Christopher Bell just missed out in his qualifier on Thursday night at the line. He ends up finishing third. Will have to go to the B main on Saturday to try to race his way into the A main. Back-to-back defending winner of this race, Logan Seavey, on Friday night had to battle it out and find his way to the front. Eventually ends up winning that race, but certainly does not have the speed that we have seen out of that number 39 car the last few years. Now, of course, everything can change on Saturday, whether that's the track prep, they find something else. Regardless, the racing this week has been top notch. The Shane Golbic cars are absolutely flying as well. Larson on rails, he's going to need to find some speed though, based off what we saw when he raced in the Race of Champions, because Christopher Bell went out there and absolutely waxed the field. Keith Kuhn still has really fast race cars. We saw that on Friday night until Ryan Timms and Gavin Miller took each other out, which was, Gavin Miller did more of the taking out there. But regardless, it has been really fun so far this week. Now we're going to start off on Saturday, run from O mains, I think, all the way through the alphabet until we get to A on Saturday night. Super excited to watch that. If you have Flow Racing, absolutely tune in. If you don't have Flow Racing, you'll probably catch the highlights like 10 minutes after the feature finishes. They're really quick about getting those up most of the time, but should be a really good day of racing on Saturday, capping it off on Sunday night. So let me know in the comments what you think about Mike Kelly kind of sparking the Carl Edwards rumors there. Jimmie Johnson coming back to run the Daytona 500 again. Burt Myers running the Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium, as well as Chili Bowl this week. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at Break Hard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Break Hard Blog.